Nigeria. Nigeria here. I swear that happened. I was here on my program that same night. I played that video. And there were still some accost mumus. They were saying, Benny, just admit that you are wrong. Benny Mayegun, just agree that you are wrong. God has put the enemy of Nigeria to shame. But they tried to explain to us, say, the arrangement from the start was that they signed a deal with Ethiopia Airline. So Ethiopia Airline is going to operate Nigeria Air, and Nigeria will make profit. That is it. What is wrong? What is wrong with all these people complaining? Baba Shane Koti Wogoson makes sense. That thing where you just said should make any sense. Does that make any sense to you? And where can we read about this? Immediately after that, aircraft turned around, and it got watered and all of that. Journalists came, they took pictures next to that aircraft on the tarmac of Nigeria, Azikiwe Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport, Abuja. They took pictures, and the next day, the headlines in Nigeria was like, the headlines were, Nigeria wins, Nigeria fly, finally. The Nigeria Air fly high. Hadi Sirika has done the unimaginable. Baba, that's how they continue to ride the mumu. So the following day, that same aircraft, which was working, the aircraft was flying the Ethiopian airline a day before. They removed the sticker. So they put the sticker over it to read Nigeria Air. Flew to Nigeria, collected and pocketed over $350,000 for that show. Then he flew back to Ethiopia. They removed the speaker, and the aircraft was back as Ethiopia Airline, and he was already on his way to Egypt, carrying passenger that have booked a day before, probably months before. That was the end of Nigeria here. Like, I want to read this. Solomon Grundy. You remember that one, right? Solomon Grundy, Bono, Monday, Christian on Tuesday. Can you come back? I'm gonna go look for it. Solomon Grundy, born on Monday, Christian on Tuesday, married on Wednesday, took ill on Thursday, grew was on Friday, died on Saturday, buried on Sunday. That was the end of Solomon Grundy. That was the end of Nigeria here. Today, the guy is standing trial, though, for other criminal activities he perpetuated as Minister of Aviation at this Sirika. He built himself a very big palace in his state. Palace like that of Sultan Palace. It's like a big estate, right? But it is designed in those old Arabian kind of style building. He's like an emir. He's dressing like an emir. He saw fraud, scam. Stealing is not haram. Looting is not haram. God damn it.
I wish the Minister of Aviation will calm down a bit because he sounded more like an activist than a minister, and the passion sometimes drowns out the message. But of course, even when the former administration first touted the issue of Nigeria Air, I think almost unanimous opinion in Nigeria is that better not go down that path again, because it will most probably end up like Nigeria Airways. The governments here have shown incapacity to really run complicated businesses like that, and it's not surprising that in 8 years the Air Nigeria never took off. Only on the last day of the former minister, he brought one plane from Ethiopia. So to that extent, Minister Keyamo is right that we should not only suspend, probably we should scrap that project and look for how to partner with private investors. Now, insisting that at this point that it has to be a Nigerian-owned airline that will go, as he said, to New York and Washington might be a tall order. You see, the international aviation industry is very complicated and capital intensive, and you also have to worry about safety. There has to be a lot of training and very good facilities and all that, and we should better plan that very, very carefully. It's not a matter of beating our chest and saying Nigeria owns this airline. There are other controversial things that the minister said, like that all the trapped airline money has been cleared. He said something like that. I hope that is true, because, you know, earlier this year, we had reports saying like Central Bank has cleared all the foreign debts, and then people say, I know, but you only paid a few $100 million out of $7 billion. And then they said, no, what we cleared was the how do they put it, the cleared debt, or the confirmed, verified. Exactly, I think that's the word, that it's a verified one. You know, we shouldn't pay, because unless the foreign airlines themselves confirm, we are not sure whether what the minister said is actually...
It's true. Anyway, that's the story for another day. So they said that Emirates Airline is coming back to Nigeria in October. Okay, so maybe they are, is it Emirates Airline or something, right? So some people are now saying that if because of their money, they suspended issuing visas to Nigerians, and then they just want to sneak back in like nothing happened. Even the visa ban has not been lifted, but the Keyamo team, they are already celebrating it. Yeah. October. Anyway, now we'll go on to our white malice. This one. So we have reading to do. Remember, although this afternoon I'm going to try and then do this even up to like 6 p.m. So that means we can have a wee chat in the middle of it. Okay, I can take calls. So I'll read this till when I'm kind of like a bit tired. All right, or getting ready to prepare for the evening. So yesterday we started reading White Malice, written by Susan Williams, and the story of how the African independence were skewed against Africans, and the mineral resources of Africans, all the mineral resources in Africa, became the targets of the Western power, as well as the Soviet Union. So Africans in Africa are worthless to all these outside powers. Our resources are more important to them. And as long as they have access to them, then they won't bomb Africa. The moment we come together to say enough, the bomb may start dropping. In fact, with the recent happenings many people are beginning to believe that their most touted World War III is likely going to be fought in Africa, on African soil, using Africans to fight this, while America, Britain, Europe, and even Russia will supply all the needed weapons. All of these are not because of any other thing than the African resources. This can give you a background story to how it all started. And it is called the White Malice. I will continue reading. If you are busy with something else, of course, you can continue listening in the background. Okay? I'll do my best not to read too fast, okay? And please pardon that my voice. I don't even know if it's a good voice reading, but people kind of love it. Or you do love listening to it, right? Thank you. So please share this. At a point, I can open the line and you can call in and we can have a chat. I would call that a break at some point. So to those who have listened to this, or if this is the first time you are listening to this reading, well, this is the second time we are reading it. Okay? Just go on to Mayegun's Diary Political. You will see a copy of that from yesterday, starting with Kwame Nkrumah, the CIA, the FBI, his marriages, spying on him. Then we got to the Congo, the richest, supposedly the richest country on earth. It has the best of all resources. And these resources, rather than being blessings to the people of Congo, it is the other way around. It's almost like a curse. The more resources they have, the more of them that these external powers have had to kill. King Leopold II is recorded to have killed over 10 million Congolese during the time of his reign from Belgium. Congo is reported to be 85 times the size of Belgium, right? But the king in Belgium was able to inflict a lifetime generational injury, not just the physical one, but including the mental one, where it's reported that hands were cut off as a sign that a police officer was walking. It was horrible. It became teary too. The connections of the African Americans to Ghana, we've also gotten to that, where the African Americans, including the civil rights movement in America, Martin Luther King, Maya Angelou, and so many other of these world famous African American civil rights activists, how they were all welcomed to Ghana. And they actually adopted Ghana as being the first African or all black African country to be independent. It gave so much hope to the people of that era. And it's kind of emotional too. So thank you for listening. And please, we shall continue the reading from chapter 4. And this is just the part 1 of the book. And this is page 36. Thank you so much for listening. Now, chapter 4, Ants of Africa. In the early morning of Monday, 8th of December, 1958, the white-painted Accra Community Center was electric with anticipation. In the sunlight courtyard, overlooking the sea, people were greeting each other and chatting excitedly. The heat was already baking, and the slow turning of the fans in the large auditorium did little to cool the air. But by 9 a.m., the room was already filled up with people waiting for the start of the All African People's Conference, AAPC, the first time in history that Africans from across the continent would assemble together. The conference would begin officially at 10 a.m. with the arrival of Prime Minister Nkrumah to give the opening speech. The heads of delegations sat on a platform behind the rostrum at the end of the hall. Behind them was an immense banner on which was portrayed a flaming torch painted in black on a map of Africa. Above the rostrum, stretching from wall to wall in letters 3 feet high, were the words, "Hands of Africa. Africa must be free." The theme, "Hands of Africa," was directly influenced by a speech Nkrumah had made 8 months earlier at the closing of the Conference of Independent African States, which had been held in Accra. It had been attended by the 8 independent states of Africa: Ethiopia, Ghana, Liberia, Libya, Morocco, Sudan, Tunisia, and the United Arab Republic of Syria and Egypt. It was decided at this meeting to hold on an All-African People's Congress later that year as a way of bringing together the freedom movement of every part of Africa to put meat on the bones. Notices were rushed out to call people to the conference. Peoples of Africa, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. You have a continent to regain. You have freedom and human dignity to attain. More than 300 political and trade union leaders responded. They represented some 65 organizations from 28 African territories, including colonies ruled by Britain, France, Belgium, Portugal, and Spain. Fraternal delegates and observers also came, including visitors from Canada, the People's Republic of China, India, Indonesia, the Soviet Union, Czechoslovakia, the United States of America, Britain, and other European countries. The delegates started to arrive in Accra on Friday, 5th December. So too did an army of local and overseas journalists and cameramen. These were heavy days, remembers Cameron Dodo, who was working at the time for the newsroom of Radio Ghana. The atmosphere in our part of Africa was quite intoxicating. Apart from Independence Day the year before, he cannot recall a day that excited Ghanaians more than the day the All-African People's Conference opened. Signs at bus stops offered slogans of encouragement: ever forward, never backward. Once the delegates had signed in at the Secretariat and received their freedom badges, they gathered on the terrace. Many of them knew each other, at least by reputation. And the attendance has been described as a who is who of African nationalism. You name it, commented Maida Springer, an American labor activist at the conference. They were there from everywhere. One man was unknown to most of the delegates: Patrice Henry Lumumba from the Belgian Congo. Lumumba, 33 years old, was distinctive, tall and very thin, with an earnest, bespectacled face and a slight beard. He was the president of the newly established movement, National Congolese, MNC, and had come to Accra with 2 other members of his party. Cameron Dodu met Lumumba at the airport. Dodu, who was on an assignment to report on the arrival of the delegates, was impressed. I remember Lumumba. He recollected many years later. Because of his goatee beard and his glasses, which gave him the look of an intellectual. My French was not up to scratch, but with the help of an official of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I was able to talk to him for a while before he was whisked away by an official car. Lumumba spoke of his wish to seek inspiration from Ghana and to exchange ideas with other freedom fighters. Nkrumah was a stickler for punctuality. He arrived at the center in his black Rolls Royce right on time, escorted by police outriders. Outside, a crowd of about 2,000 people had been waiting for the Prime Minister in the morning sunshine for almost 2 hours. People lined the side of the road carrying placards in English and French, bearing slogans as "Ne touchez pas l'Afrique" and "Welcome Africa's freedom fighters." On the other side of the road were the flags of 9 independent countries in Africa. As Nkrumah's car swung into view, the crowd burst into thunderous cheering, reported Accra's Daily Graphic. And there were shouts of freedom. A smiling Nkrumah waved to them all with a white handkerchief, dressed in a richly colored kente cloth and a cool white shirt. Nkrumah climbed out of his car. He was greeted by a small group of men led by Tom Mboya, a prominent Kenyan trade unionist who would chair the conference. Mboya slowly ushered Nkrumah into the center, with his arm resting in a comradely manner on Nkrumah's shoulder. As they walked, they spoke quietly to each other, nodding their heads. They entered the hall, and immediately the buzz of conversation faded away. People rose to their feet, beaming and cheering, and there was vigorous clapping. Then Mboya led Nkrumah to the rostrum. Mboya spoke first. "This is a historic occasion," he observed solemnly. "I am sure that all who are here will recognize the significance of it." He himself was deeply conscious of its importance. He also felt keenly the honor accorded to him by the conference committee when they appointed him as chairman. The day he arrived in Ghana, when he was greeted with this unexpected news, he wrote later, "was the proudest day of my life." As he looked out at the packed rows of expectant faces, Mboya put aside his prepared address. Instead, the New York Times reported he made a speech during which one could have heard a pin drop in the pauses between bursts of cheering and clapping. He said he had no doubt that the 200 million people of Africa were represented in that room. Then he drew a contrast between the conference that was just beginning and a conference that had taken place 24 years earlier and thousands of miles away. The Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885, where European nations had met to decide how to partition Africa. That meeting he said, was known as the scramble for Africa. But today,